Moneyball is difficult to pull off in career mode, so today we're going to try and do exactly that. I just made an entire video explaining the idea behind Moneyball in career mode, but today I'm starting a series where I take over my favourite club and see if we can make it to the Champions League. To make things harder for myself, I've got just 3 rules. Player search is totally disabled, so I can't use sofifa and cheat on the challenge. I can only sign players who are under 80 overall, and I have to sell players over 85 overall if a bid comes in over their market value. It's going to be tough, and we're probably going to struggle to compete at the top of the table, but we're going to use Moneyball to sign undervalued players and create the best possible counter-attacking team in the Premier League. Right, so let's get started. I'm already using the most up-to-date start points, so Forest are in 5th place when we begin. I can see the comments already. Geografifa, how is it even a challenge to get a 5th place team to finish 4th? Well, does this look like a 5th place squad to you? Before we can Moneyball, we need to do 2 things. The first is decide on a tactic. This Forest team is already so good at counter-attacking, and that's exactly how we're going to play. Hudson-Odoi and Alanga are going to carry the ball as far as they can up the wings, and hopefully Wood will be staying high in the middle, and he can finish some of the chances off. Behind him, we have 3 of the hardest working midfielders in the league, Gibbs White, Anderson and Dominguez, who can all play on the ball, but more importantly can get the ball to wingers and wingbacks pretty quickly. Speaking of the wingbacks, they're going to be super important for this tactic too. They're going to be going so far up the pitch, and I think Aina and the expiring loanee Moreno are both very good at doing this in real life. Finally, we have the 2 centre-backs and the goalkeeper, who are all quality in real life, but honestly not actually that good in FC25. So boom, that's the tactic done, and the second thing we now have to do is play 4 matches to get into the January transfer window. These 4 games are against Villa, Brentford, Spurs and Everton, so it's not the most threatening set of fixtures, but we'll need to probably grab at least 6 points from these 4 games to stay in Champions League contention. Right, so let's start straight away with that game against Aston Villa. Combined, Villa and Forest have a combined 3 Champions League trophies, and who knows, maybe by the end of the season that could be 4 or 5. Anyway, this was the first time we've used this tactic, and honestly, it was actually pretty good. Overall, the defence was maybe a little bit too deep, and we were taking a lot of long shots like this one from Dominguez, but overall, the first half was actually a decent watch. Chris Wood also had a chance that Ronaldinho would have been proud of creating, and Sells was making save after save after save after we were getting counter-attacked ourselves. But finally, we actually got a full counter. Elliot Anderson would find substitute Ramon Sousa near the halfway line, he would turn, he would run into the final third. Villa don't seem to know how to stop Sousa, and when they stepped up, he plays Gibbs White through. It was such a Gibbs White thing to prefer to do a Trivela than use his weak foot and get in. It works. Forest are 1-0 up against Aston Villa. Matt Sells would make another bunch of saves. This one being tipped over the bar was probably the best of the lot, but one mistake saw Tielemans find some space and Villa would find an equaliser. Sure, 1-1 isn't a bad result, but maybe we should have invested in Nuno's 5-3-2 tactic that he uses in real life. He uses it to hold on to points better, and would we need it against Brentford? Well, they were one of the best examples of how Moneyball can be used. They were a struggling League 2 team that no one knew, and now they're a constant top division side. In this game, Aina was absolutely on fire. He blasted a long shot at Flecken, who could only palm it out for a corner. From that corner, the ball would eventually get recycled to Alanga. He would make a cross that Beckham would have been proud of, and guess who's diving onto the end of it? That's right, our attacking wingback, Aina. That's exactly how we want to play. Pretty much the rest of the game was just us dropping deep and defending, and yet again Matt Sells made a string of really good saves. Again, this one was probably my favourite, but then a cross would come in and be headed home by Igor. I hate conceding late equalisers, and we're 100% going to make that 5-3-2 tactic I've mentioned a couple of times already after this match. So with a second successive 1-1 secured, we were just 5 days away from starting our Moneyball rebuild, and Spurs on Boxing Day was the toughest game yet. In fact, Forest have a total of 0 points in the 4 league games they've played against Spurs since they got promoted, and we still haven't even had a chance to improve our squad slightly. Even a draw in this game would be totally fine. As always, we were trying to score bangers. Hudson-Odoi would hit the crossbar with a trademark finesse, but it was actually Spurs who were playing better on the counter-attack. Solanke would dribble inside, he would cut across to Maddison. It's pretty much an open goal. That's always going to be 1-0. Things only got worse for us when Solanke would slip over in the rain, but the ref would give a red card to Milenkovic. It was hard to attack with 10 men, and Kulusevski would make it 2-0 for Spurs with a really nice finish from the edge of the box, and that was basically the match done. So now we have just 2 days to go before we can unleash our statistics team on the transfer window. Everton are in our way, and honestly, they shouldn't really be the toughest team to beat. However, with 2 draws and a loss, we really needed a win, and Everton was set up in a really useful way for us. They only had one guy forwards, Beto, and they had no width, they had no threat, and really no desire to score. We could get Alanga in down the sides fairly often in the first half, but his low crosses weren't quite coming off. Set pieces were going to be an issue though, and Beto nearly flicked this one in. But then it was our turn to counter. Gibbs-White would flick it off to Yates. He ran forwards and did his best Steven Gerrard impression by smashing it in the top corner. What a goal that was from our very own academy legend. Gibbs-White would try and do the same thing in the 60th minute, but then we decided it was time to roll out the 5-3-2 for the first time. This is a tactic built to frustrate. It's built to press deep and also drop deep, but also designed to counter-attack pretty well using wingbacks. It was so helpful in helping us to lock the game down, and just like that, Pickford would kick it long and we get win number 1. Right, so that's the 4 games we needed to play to get to the transfer window fully played. Let's start the Moneyball. To be a true counter-attacking team, we'll need a way to move the ball up the pitch quickly. I love Elliot Anderson's profile normally, but he's been pretty average in these 4 games at both short and long passing. We really need a centre mid with good long passing, preferably a playstyle like incisive pass, so a central midfielder is definitely going on our transfer list. Hudson-Odoi is meant to be our inside forward as well, pushing narrow to support Wood, but he's actually quite poor at finishing and has no attacking playstyles at all. Technically he's great, but he just doesn't fit our tactic as well as Alanga does on the other side. Really, we need a player like Anthony Gordon. If we could sign him and Bruno Guimaraes, this team would be perfectly ready to play in the Champions League. Of course though, we can't sign either, and neither even show up in our scouting. Here's the list of players that our scouts think we should sign. Of course, not having player search on makes things a lot harder. We could have looked at someone like Timo Werner if we could search for him, or maybe even Lee Sang-hyun. You might be wondering why I'd suggest a Korean who's in the low 70s, but he has the rapid and quick step playstyles and also has 80 finishing and can play left wing. Is it really that far out there for a Moneyball save? Well, he didn't show up either, but one player that did was Galeno. This guy was actually linked to Forest in the summer, and he has pace in the 90s and 5 really useful playstyles, as well as being able to finish better than Hudson-Odoi. He's only 80 rated, but if you average his 2 pace stats, his dribbling and his finishing, he actually rounds up to around 87. We're not going to be using this guy in the build-up, he's going to be running onto the ball and finishing chances, so this is exactly what we need. Okay, so now let's look for that midfielder. I'm 100% cancelling Ward-Prowse's loan after we sign this guy, so we're going to have a ton of wages to use on this person. Our scout in Belgium might have found the exact person we need, Adam Zolgani. He'll win us points with his crazy high passing percentage, he also has whipped crosses if he ever goes out wide, and he has a lot of stamina and strength, which are perfect for our centre midfield player. Overall, he's rated as a 79, but because we're going to try and avoid his weaknesses here and there, he'll actually perform closer to an 83 for us in the role we're using him. So let's round off the window by signing a left-back replacement that we talked about earlier. Moreno is only on loan and it's expiring at the end of this year, so how can we get more points from this position? Well, we don't have anyone who can take a set piece, and have a look at this guy we found. This guy is a left midfielder, Kevin Zenon. He can't even play as a wingback, but he's mid-80s for pace, he's got 81 crossing and 91 stamina. He fits the attacking wingback role almost perfectly. The 78 free kick accuracy is another bonus, and by the end of the season, we can probably retrain this guy to be about a 77 rated left back, but he'll be playing so much better than this. He's my favourite of the 3 players, and I think Zenon could be really special for Forest this season. You know what? Let's actually put Galeno, Zenon and Zolgani all into our team against Bournemouth. We have got other issues in this team, like Awoniyi and Wood both being in international games, and they've both come back super tired. I'm hoping the fact that Zenon doesn't actually know how to play left back won't make too big of a difference, but really, against Bournemouth, what could even go wrong? Well, it shocks me how small the Vitality Arena is every time I play against Bournemouth, but Bournemouth being in the Premier League themselves is actually quite shocking to me. They were very much a lower league team until they got a bit of money, and Evan Nilsson is their latest big money signing. Replacing Solanke, he's going to be hard to stop, especially with us starting with a 63 rated centre back. Things were never going to be easy in this game. However, it doesn't get much easier than this. Alanga's driven cross hits their keeper's shin, and there's no doubt that that's probably the worst goal we'll score this entire season. Kirkes got done so hard for that goal, Anyway, Zorgane was controlling his midfield on his debut, and even though he was running a lot slower than I was expecting him to run, his lack of pace actually caused this massive space that Evan Nilsson nearly took advantage of. But of course, it's yet another top save from our Belgian first choice keeper, Matt Sells. It was actually Zorgane's lack of positioning that also caused this, with Aina diving in to try and stop the counter-attack. It's a red card, and fair enough, we were down to 10 men. It's absolutely not the best debut for Zorgane, so let's sub him off for Nico Williams. We decided to drop Gibbs White deeper, and that did make him play so much better as well. My favourite moment of the game was him flicking over Lewis Cook right here, but we were fully in hold on to what we have mode already. If it wasn't for Sells making saves like this, we would be behind already, and we were just hoofing the ball as far as we could from our goal. From a different clearance, the ball was bobbling in midfield and we went in hard yet again. The ref says too hard yet again, and now we're down to 9 men and forced to play a 4-3-1 tactic. This was going to be an awful last 20 minutes, but hopefully we could get the win or maybe even settle for a draw. As we were trying to change for a defensive tactic, Abbott would lose track of Evan Nilsson and he lobbed Sells, and honestly, we would absolutely take that draw right now. We keep trying to attack, but it was Bournemouth's time to hit us on the counter. With almost all our team over the halfway line, our 94 strength Serbian centre-back got bullied by their Brazilian Evan Nilsson, who didn't even need the unmarked Kluivert who was in the middle. He smashed it near post, and we'd crumbled to a loss. I can't blame it all on the new players, of course, but none of them have cemented themselves as crucial first-team players at all. It's not great news in the table either. We're now just 1 point ahead of Bournemouth and 2 ahead of Newcastle. I think we need to go on a little bit of a run just to even secure Conference League football. We could easily drop down to around 10th. Maybe this run could start with an early goal against Brighton. We couldn't counter from the free kick that we got, but Gibbs White would smash the ball at Wood. Somehow he controlled it, went round the goalkeeper and slotted it into the empty net. What a great bit of play that it was from Chris Wood. And Sells had to be on top form for the rest of the game. He saved Welbeck's one-on-one, and look at our press. Woody boy nearly got a lucky second by diving in on our keeper, and we were absolutely on amazing form. Elanga turned into prime Robin just after the hour mark. He dribbled in from the touchline all the way to the 6-yard box, but couldn't quite find Galeno with the cut back across. And that was it. It was time for plan B. 5 men at the back, deep defensive line, and as many central defensive midfielders as we could fit onto the pitch. It was this move that forced March to play a bit wider than he wanted for this shot, and it did also still let us hit Brighton on the counter-attack. Wood would play in a 1-2 here. He used his bulky frame to dance inside, but thankfully their hoof ended the game, and we'd somehow held on for maximum points in a really tough game. Of course, a win is always good for the table, and it's even better news that we were playing a Man City team that had just had a midweek match in the Champions League. They were so tired, every one of our players was fresh, and if we were ever going to beat them, this was the day. If we pick up any points in this match, we get one step closer to actually playing them in the Champions League final, maybe in a couple of years' time. The City ground was buzzing. People could remember Chris Wood's last-minute equaliser back in 2022, but could we do even better today? Well, straight from the 5th minute, City looked bad. I mean, to be honest, maybe we just looked good. Danilo had come back from injury and he was now our deep-line playmaker on the right. Gibbs White found him in some space and no City player could even get close. Yeah, that was a bad shot, but damn, we might actually have a chance to beat Man City in this game. Or might I say, we might have 4 chances. Wood would force the first from this header, Hudson-Odoi should have done better with the second, the third was tough, and finally the fourth was poked in by Woody Boy himself. Ice cold from the Kiwi, that's one of my favourite chaotic moments of FC 25 so far. It was like watching pure championship football at its very best. Of course, we're not switching to a 5-3-2 anytime soon. We're going to keep putting balls into the box. Zenon's 81 crossing almost worked twice, and it was just so much better than what Man City could do. They attacked, but honestly, I think I could have saved this tame effort from Phil Foden, and then it was back to Forest dominating the ball. Chris Wood was just bullying Akanji and Kovacic when he dropped deep, and just before half-time, he should have made it 2-0. Just after half-time, City got back into the game a little bit again. This Haaland shot told me that it was probably time to move to plan B. 5-3-2 as usual, Morato, Milenkovic and Murillo forming a brick wall. Going defensive though, doesn't mean we can't counter-attack. Anderson's shot took a decent block, and then Wood's shot would hit the woodwork. And Gibbs White did a shot that couldn't be stopped. What a volley that was, and honestly, the game felt pretty secure by this point. The mighty Man City had been tamed, and the even better Nottingham Forest had now pulled a 5-point gap and have a pretty good chance of finishing in the Europa League. But what if that isn't our goal anymore? Sure, the Europa League would be nice, but I think we can finish 4th, overtaking Villa and Chelsea in the next couple of months. We still have to play both, and 5 points isn't even that many points. The Villa game was coming up soon, but before we could head to Villa Park, we had a tough away day at Portman Road. After beating Manchester City, Ipswich Town shouldn't be that much of a threat though, right? And the only real moment of controversy was the ref letting us take this free kick quickly. Gibbs White did a 1-2 with Anderson and had tons of space, and didn't he just take advantage? What a hit that was. We did the same as normal for the rest of this game. 5-3-2. A one-year Wood up front, and we just totally suffocated the game. It was a fairly simple 1-0 win, and now it was time for that Villa game. If you look at the table, we were actually now just 2 points behind them. But could Forest really be ending game week 30 in 4th place? Okay, sure, Chelsea and Villa both have a game in hand, but I mean, it could happen. We go into the game as always, with Galeno and Zenon starting, and Zorgane on the bench ready to help us kill the game off if we can get a lead. Legit, as soon as you see Zorgane and Morato on the halfway line ready to get subbed in, we just get total control of the ball. In fact, we were in total control pretty early on. Galeno was against former Forest player Matty Cash, and it was a really good battle, as was Tielemans versus professional Villa hater Morgan Gibbs White. Gibbs White was all over the ball. Aina was advancing him to midfield, and he found Wood, who found Galeno. He was just onside, and what a damn finish. It was curled straight into the top corner, and that could be the biggest goal for Forest since Levi Colwell's own goal back in the 2022 playoff final. Nuno was ecstatic, and the bench were on the pitch, but could we hold on? No, we couldn't, because we wanted more. Gibbs White should have made a quick-fire double, but Emi Martinez is the world's #1 for a reason. Dominguez also played a quality ball out to Elanga. He would cut inside and drill another low cross, but this time there's no comedy own goal. We were really pushing for that second goal now, and after half-time, Anderson would find Zenon. Cash was left jogging behind him, and what a ball in! Galeno was there, 2 of our transfers linking up, and oh my god, are Forest actually going to qualify for the UEFA Champions League? You know what we had to do next. 5-3-2. Bring on Morato and Nico and hold on for dear life. If anything, this change actually got us further up the pitch. With 3 giant centre-backs, every single corner could be really good for us. Elanga would float one in at the near post, and Milenkovic was there. There's no coming back for this from Aston Villa, and Murillo even tried to get one of his own from a really ambitious free kick. The following corner was headed wide, but we have those 3 points. Holy crap. To be honest, not much changes in the table after the Villa game, but whenever we win, Chelsea win. Whenever we lose, they seem to lose. But that's leading up to this. Forest are in 5th with just a single game to go. Guess who it's against? If you guessed Chelsea, you were spot on. I was legitimately nervous going into this game. This was the accumulation of about 10 hours of playing FIFA career mode. We put out what is, I think, our strongest team, Galeno on the wing, Nico and Moreno at fullback, and we had no room for mistakes. We had no room for someone like Aina to be drifting into midfield. We had to be super strong and super steady if we were going to make the top 4 come the end of this match. On paper, we had no chance of beating Chelsea. They had Reece James right back, they had Alphonso Davies left back, and so much pace in every single position. And this kind of proved to be the case. They were just way too fast for us. Mudryk playing through Madueke, and it took a good block from Milenkovic just to keep the game at 0-0. We tried our best to try and outrun their wingers, but every time Madueke and Mudryk would be able to track Nico Williams. We finally got a decent chance when Danilo would break forwards from midfield. Elanga would try and put on the afterburners and get past Alphonso Davies, and Chris Wood headed Colwell into the goal rather than the ball. Wood was actually somehow our best player against their threat. They couldn't outmuscle him, and he would play it to Gibbs White, who'd give it to Galeno, back to Wood, and that would technically be our first shot on target, with Sanchez saving the ball with his feet. But still, it's approaching 0-0 in a game we actually have to win. Reece James would try and advance down their right, but he would find Madueke. Murillo couldn't quite cover across him, and Nkunku found João Felix in the middle. How many times in this video have I said, what a save from Sells? But that one has actually kept us in the race for the Champions League. It could be absolutely huge. We decided against changing anything at half time. We thought if we're going to get anything out of this, it's probably going to be a Chris Wood header or something from a cross, and then we can go 5-3-2 and hold on. But Chelsea, they came out a new team. Felix smashed one past the keeper, but also thankfully past the post. Actually turned out to be a really good save by Sells. And that was it. We decided to finally make a change. Alanga coming off, Hudson-Odoi coming on. He's a totally different kind of winger, but we need to keep the ball in the Chelsea half if we're going to have any chance of surviving this onslaught. Danilo giving it away to Palmer is not helping. And Palmer again, just missing the target when he easily could have scored. So, getting on towards an hour now. Madueke finding Nkunku to João Felix again. Murillo leaving a big gap, but thankfully is a pretty bad shot. Over an hour gone in this match now, and I think we're getting into it a little bit more. In fact, we win the ball back on the halfway line, and Gibbs-White finds a substitute, Awoniyi. He finds Galeno, he gets around Colwell, he's going to poke it towards the corner, but it misses by just a couple of inches. Galeno so close to getting us Champions League football. We've now only got 10 minutes to try and get this goal. Chelsea made a bunch of changes themselves. Of course, their players a lot better than ours on the substitute bench, but we've got people like Ryan Yates. He plays it to Gibbs-White. Awoniyi into Galeno again. Surely this time he scores. He absolutely does. And Galeno puts Forest 1-0 up with just 7 minutes left in the match. At this point, you're probably going to guess what I'm about to say, but we went 5-3-2. We didn't have any substitutes left, so Awoniyi was actually playing as our left centre-back, and we were just going to go in aggressive. We were going to stop them dribbling, force them to go set pieces, and force them to try and hoof it onto our tallest players. Well, the referee didn't even add on a single minute of extra time. Forest had won, and Forest were in the Champions League for the first time since 1982. It's only the fourth time they've ever qualified. They've won it 2 of the other 3 times they've played in it. And hopefully, you'll subscribe if you're interested in seeing how we get on in the Champions League. What a season that was. That was one of the most fun seasons I've played in career mode this year. And I think the best thing is that this could actually happen. As a Forest fan, I really hope it does. But hopefully you enjoyed watching this video, even if you support Chelsea. And thank you for watching. Really do appreciate it. Happy Christmas, and I'll see you soon. Cheers and goodbye.